This is the last of the 7 plenary meetings, and which covered 45 discussion tracks and 5 sumptuous lunches. I think it's time for us to say thank you. You know, diplomats' role is always to say thank you, whatever is told of her, but she has to say thank you. And to the organizers, to the sponsors, to the speakers. But the applause, I think, belongs to all of you who have remained faithful to the end. So please applaud yourselves. When I came in, I said, you know, this is fantastic. In the United Nations, after the second day, seats are empty. So I really am very happy that you have stayed on. I don't know what you will do after 3 o'clock. There's going to be an event somewhere, but at least we are going to be together for the next hour or so. I would like to say, of course, at the beginning that to me this session is Kate Maceda's sweet revenge. Because when I was Secretary of Foreign Affairs, I gave her all the dirty job. But she did it very well, and she often calls me her slave driver or her tormentor. So now it's my turn to enjoy what she had enjoyed with me. I think that if you look back at the sessions these past few days, and I'm speaking for myself, I have learned a lot. After working 40-odd years in the Philippine Foreign Service, it's wonderful to come home and to see such engaged people as you are. And I'm very optimistic that after this session or after this experience, we will all be more challenged than ever. Our country needs everybody, and your enthusiasm displayed by your presence here and your presence in all the other meetings and your engagement are really very heartwarming. But before I open the floor, I'd like to ask you a question. Of course, you know the topic for this session. I would like to know from you, how many of you have taken on a cause or have joined a cause or have become active in a cause because you were influenced by a celebrity? May I see your hands, please? Oh dear, I think we have to close this session. Well, okay, let me put the question another way. How many of you would join a cause because you believe in the cause? Isn't that nicer? Now I'm coming back. We're not leaving. Thank you. Before I go on to the panelists, I had a wonderful dinner, as you all did last night, with the Secretary Cisneros. And when he started talking about the Quaker way of doing things, I had the privilege of working for many years in a Quaker school in Japan. So I learned something of what he was saying, that one has to respect a human being, because a human being is a creation of God, and then there is innate goodness in every man. Something that he didn't tell you was that because of that belief, Quakers do not take oaths, because they believe in the innate goodness of man, the innate honesty of man. So they know and they believe that they're always telling the truth. So there is no need to take a pledge that they will tell the truth. So I'm sure our panel today will tell the truth and nothing but the truth. Well, to give you their thoughts on these aspects, I think that the paper that you have in the program gives you a brief background of all of the speakers today. Recent years have seen the emergence of advocacy champions from the ranks of celebrities and the more prominent members of society. Conventional wisdom argues that such endorsements can help raise awareness for the many social and environmental causes. Others argue, however, that celebrities who champion causes could also hurt the campaign, as public attention may be diverted from the cause to their individual stories as celebrities. There are also those who argue that while advocacies are continuing, the popularity of celebrities could be fleeting, and that their departure from the public scene may have an injurious impact on the campaign. A lot to think about. To give their thoughts on these aspects of advocacy work, I'm very pleased to introduce to you our highly experienced, they may all look very young, but they certainly have been celebrities in their own very special ways. And I repeat, they are honest celebrities. First is Marian Cabral, who is the Vice President for Institutional Advancement of the Asian Institute of Management and co-founder of Venture for Fundraising. She asked me not to mention the latter experience she had because you might think she has all the answers to your important question, how do I raise funds? But I think she will be more than pleased to answer your questions later on. Our second speaker is Ms. Alex Eduque, the founder and chairperson of Habitat for Humanity, Philippines Youth Council, and Move.org Foundation Incorporated. Alex? I have to admit, I was happy to note that I would have two male members of the panel when I was told Alex is a girl. But nonetheless, I'll turn you to a brave soul, Efren Peña Florida. I think many of you know him. I must admit, I'm meeting him for the first time, but I've heard a lot about you. He is a 2009 CNN Hero of the Year and known as the pushcart educator. What's pushcart in Tagalog? Cariton. Cariton. Okay. Is that also in other dialects? It's all cariton. Sounds French. Now I feel so privileged that I was able to sit next to somebody who told me yesterday there must be somebody on stage who should be really there. And I made a survey. Who in the Philippines would put a face to Habitat for Humanity? I've asked so many people. There was only one name that came out. Guess who? You have the answer. Margie Moran. You know, for you, you know her as Habitat for Humanity. For those of a certain age group, she was Miss Universe. I won't tell you what year. But for me, she has been a comrade in arms for women movements for the peace in Mindanao. As ambassador to Australia, I did a lot And I must say, to engage the women of Mindanao, because I felt that they would give a very strong support to ensure that the future generations of Mindanao will live in a situation where there is peace and where mothers can be comfortable that their children are safe. And so Margie and I are in Mothers for Peace movement in Mindanao. And of course, the Mindanao Commission for Women, which is a very active partner for many of us who think that one of the key answers for Mindanao issues are the women. But something I just discovered recently is that she's a terrific tango dancer. Don't make her dance afterwards because I don't think we'll have time for that. Now let's begin the discussion. The first would be Mayan Cabral, who will tell you about herself. I'm sure she will edit out fundraising, but it is the most exciting subject for many of us because of being a co-founder of Venture for Fundraising. And something that is not in your book is that Mayan and I serve in the Magsaysay Foundation, where we award people for their greatness of spirit. And looking at all of you and talking to you, I think many of you are good candidates for Magsaysay Award. And it is not, well, people say it's like the Nobel Prize. The Nobel Prize is for individuals who have done fantastic jobs. But the Magsaysay Award is an award that recognizes a person's greatness of spirit and how he can or she can influence the lives of others, and that this greatness of spirit will lift humanity from the present troubling conditions. So before I make more PR for Magsaysay Foundation, that was her job, now it's mine, she'll tell you about herself and about what she's doing for Habitat for Humanity. Mayan?
Good afternoon. Thank you. Anybody in this room has all the resources they need for their programs? Raise your hands. Okay, just checking. I started the fundraising program of UNICEF in the Philippines, and I also managed our ambassador, Gary Valenciano. This is a familiar name for many Filipinos. But as a fundraiser, I always link the work of ambassadors to fundraising, because at the end of the day, the funds that you need to fulfill your missions need to be accessed, whether they are in the form of gifts, donations, corporate giving, funding from institutional donors, and the like. So I come here hopefully to share a survey on giving that was conducted by Venture for Fundraising many years ago, that shows that there are favorite causes that Filipinos and other Asians prefer to give to, and where housing is in that scheme of things. There are top 10, if there are top 10 songs and top 10 cars and top 10 rich people, there are also top 10 giving causes for Asians. And there are some causes that do better than others. And so I'm happy to share that this afternoon.
Thank you, Mayan. We will hold her message to you at the end until we have introduced everybody. Alex, would you like to take on?
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Alex Eduque. I'm the founder and chair of the Habitat Philippines Youth Council and Move.org. I just want to put it out there, I'm not a celebrity. A lot of you in this room probably don't even know me. I'd like to be known more as an advocate, I feel, rather than a celebrity. But I'm here today to share my fundraising work and successes as well, and how we started out. Tita Margie knows this, how I started out as like the only youth working for Habitat, and then we eventually got others involved. I think over the years, our biggest achievement has been into turning the doubters into believers, that the youth can actually do something and are actually worthy of the time of the Filipino people. So yeah, I'm looking forward to sharing that with all of you today.
Efren, the brave male in the, on the stage.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. I am Efren G. Peña Florida Jr. You can call me F for short, because my name is like long. I work with the less fortunate children here in our country, the Philippines. We bring education to communities by pushing a cart. We call ourselves pushers. But it's a good pushers of positive change of education. We bring education to the children, and we want to tell them that learning is fun, that it's an effective tool for them to be successful in life, and we empower young people to volunteer, and I would also like to share with you how I got involved with Habitat for Humanity way back in 1999, when I was still 16 years old or 17 probably that time, in Maragondon, Cavite, where I was inspired when Kuya Gary V was there to perform during at the conclusion of the event, and how celebrities can really make a difference for the cause that they believe in.
Okay. You know, when I have to fill up a card at the airport, an immigration card, I really don't know what to put in occupation. Because I wear so many hats. And I'm a volunteer for at least 5 different NGOs. And when I was asked to join Habitat for Humanity in 1999, this was the year after Jimmy Carter came to the Philippines, so I already knew what Habitat was all about, and I became very curious. I had my own TV show. It was called Margie on Mindanao, and I was also a congressional spouse. So I was very much involved in community work in our district. And no less than another celebrity asked me to join Habitat for Humanity, and that was Fernando Sobel de Ayala. I was a very busy person, so, you know, when he asked me as a friend. He didn't ask me because I was a celebrity. Because Habitat needed someone from Mindanao to start the youth build in the region. How could I say no to a man who's head of a conglomerate and give the excuse that I was busy? You know, so of course I said yes. And I found myself as a volunteer when we did our youth build in Davao del Sur. And so I mobilized the schools, the youth, because I thought I was still young, but that was 14 years ago, and I could say I was still young, but I was not as young as Alex. But I was at an age where I wanted to do something significant. For me, I feel that, you know, being exposed to NGOs and work like Habitat for Humanity, it's not about just giving back, because I don't think I took anything, something to give back. For me, it's a duty that you have to help those who are not as equal as you or have much less than what you have. And that was my learning. And so that was the main reason why I joined Habitat for Humanity. Because I felt that when I was able to mobilize all these volunteers, and then eventually I was very much involved in raising funds for Habitat for Humanity. I joined the board when we were only building 200 houses a year. And it was so difficult to raise money, but when you're put in a position, if you're a celebrity, and you're put in a position of influence, you're able to aspire other people. And so that created the passion in me to really stay on and be part of the virus of Habitat, because I was able to connect also Habitat with government, with DSWD, at a time when we were having conflict in Mindanao. So I really focused on Mindanao. and also as my role as the chair of the Commission on Women in Mindanao. We were part of all the peace efforts in Mindanao. And we started building houses. Also, a few years after that, we were able to obtain funds from the European Union. And we built 1,000 houses in central Mindanao in post-conflict areas. And from then on, I really got, it fulfilled me as an individual. I took my master's in rural development at the University at Imperial College in England to make me grow and be more educated in really dealing with the poor. So I'm still in Habitat. I've been in the board in two sets of elections. So I've been in the board for 12 or 14 years as part of Habitat for Humanity. So that's my story.
Thank you, Margie. I think you touched on a very sensitive spot in my heart when you talked about post-conflict. When I was Secretary of Foreign Affairs, I was privileged to chair the Security Council of the United Nations. And I had the privilege to choose the subject that I would like the permanent 5 and the non-permanent 6 to discuss during my chairmanship. I thought of Mindanao, and the catchword there was post-conflict. And I said to Mr. Kofi Annan, I would like to put on the agenda of the United Nations the role of civil society in post-conflict peace building. That's a mouthful. And as expected, the big powers say, oh, that belongs to the Economic and Social Council. It doesn't belong to the Security Council. I said, no, I'm sorry, but I think it is something that my country would like to share experiences with, and that we would like to draw attention to the participation of civil society in post-conflict areas. I thought of all the wonderful civil society groups in the Philippines, and so I was heartened when I attended your sessions that you were talking about the 3 Ps: the public, the private, the NGOs, and the civil society, which I think has a very big role to play in all of these development equation. So I had to lobby to get that item on the agenda. And when I wasn't getting anywhere, I went to the Secretary General of the United Nations and I said, Mr. Kofi Annan, the boys don't want my agenda. And he looked at me and he says, young lady, I wasn't really that young. She says, Madam Minister, you're the chair, you decide. So I went to the Security Council. I said, gentlemen, I'm the chair and I decide. And so the Philippines put on the agenda of the Security Council the role of civil society in post-conflict peace building. And someone asked me, why are you so keen about this? I said, because after you guys make all the wars, who's left behind to pick up the pieces? Civil society, the women, of course the women. Anyway, I thought I'd just put that into your presentation because I thought it is a very important role that you're playing in Mindanao, the Mindanao Commission for Women. Now, let's go back to Mayen. We won't let her get away too quickly with fundraising because she did a study exactly on how on the impact of celebrity endorsers to advocacy campaigns. And that we would like to ask her, do you really think that celebrity endorsements for advocacies really help? Could you share us some of the results of your study?
As I mentioned, thank you, Delia. As I mentioned earlier, when we did a study, we had found that there were the top 10, no? The top cause that Asians prefer giving to is not unusual. It is children. So anything and everything that had anything to do with children usually will get the dollar donation. Where was Habitat or housing in this top 10? Not in the top 5. Not in the top 7. It was number 8. Which means that causes like housing and environment. In Asia, environment is not in the top 5. It's actually number 10. It is these causes that require some degree of ambassadors or champions so that we can bring to the dining table the discussion of environment and housing. So in cases like housing and environment, ambassadors play a key role in getting people to understand the cause. If you are a children's organization or a health organization or an education organization, very often ambassadors are decorations because the cause speaks for themselves. It's not necessary to have an actor or an actress pitch education or children because education and children become the pitch itself. No? We've also found that people will not change their giving even if it is endorsed by a celebrity. It doesn't matter if it is Gary Valenciano or in our case at UNICEF International, it was Audrey Hepburn. It didn't matter if it was Audrey Hepburn or the head of UNICEF asking for money. The money would come. The question becomes, does it cost you more to have a celebrity endorse your cause or not? Not all the celebrities come in free. There are some celebrities who will ask that they be given a little amount of money. And we were able to find by having our key celebrities that we were able to elevate the discussion of children's rights to a higher level. No? But because it didn't cost us anything, it was a bonus. Now, if it had cost us a little bit of money, some of the celebrities actually charge a lot, then I think we would not have done a celebrity endorser. What we experienced with celebrity endorser, it's a double-edged sword. If a celebrity ends up in the front page because of a video scandal or something of the like, then it also brings down the organization, which means that the celebrities, you need to take care of them quite carefully because they will bring your organization up or down with them. When we were preparing for this, I was talking to Margie about the need, the pros and cons of having young ambassadors and what was our term? It was like, she said retiring. I said it's not a nice way to describe the ambassadors. Seasoned ambassadors. And we figured that seasoned ambassadors were more stable as ambassadors because they had made their mistakes when they were young. And the little mistakes that they will commit as they grow a little bit older will be forgiven as senior citizen mistakes. No? So it's really that need to identify longer lasting celebrities because a celebrity who stays with you a year isn't really sufficient to establish that brand with the celebrity, between the celebrity and the organization. But we all know that in this generation of me, many of the celebrities we have, their interest in organizations very fleeting. They really don't stay with you a long time. Something else will catch their fancy a year after or 2 years after, and then they'll become an ambassador of some other thing. Yeah? So it's really the seasoned ambassadors who don't cost anything that contribute to bringing the agenda to a broader discussion table. So that's my contribution from the survey.
Now that is a challenge to Alex. Alex, you are one of the ambassadors of Habitat for Humanity Philippines. What really motivated you to take on this role? And has there been other activities for you to link up with other countries? You know, in my experience, when I hear the word ambassador, I have it in the context of diplomacy. So I always think of diplomacy. But in the German language, really, perhaps it's more appropriate in this case, it's called Botschafter. Botschafter means the bearer of message. So I think that's a better word. Perhaps we can call you Botschafter Alex. And yeah, I'm very curious to know how you got started, and I think there's enough young people here to be drawn into your field of interest and your experiences, and we're very curious.
Okay. To be honest, I don't know how I became an ambassador. It's more of something, I guess, that got bestowed on me just because there was a time, as I mentioned earlier, I started with the organization as an independent volunteer. I was 15 years old and I spent 2 months in Baseco, in Tondo, building houses. And I remember that was a time of desperate need because that was the year when the fire hit Baseco quite bad. And so we were literally building homes and rebuilding lives at that point. It came to my surprise, and after that, I guess it really touched my heart. I fell in love with the cause because I really do believe that shelter is really the foundation, as it says here, to breaking the poverty cycle, because without shelter, if someone does not have a place of stability to go home to every day, they don't have that pride to give them that sense of hope to dream bigger and to go on with life. And then it came as a surprise when a lot of my friends actually wanted to join me on builds after that. And so I really felt that a lot of young people, a lot of the youth really want to help, but oftentimes they're not given the proper opportunities, or they don't know the proper platform to get involved with. And so I decided to start the youth council with 5 other friends, and I think it really clicked at the time because then finally here are my classmates, here I was in high school then, here are the young people. They saw an avenue for them to get involved where they knew it was a worthy cause, but more importantly, during the teenage years, you know, teenagers are always scared to be stigmatized by saying, I'm helping out Habitat over the weekend. Oh, you're not cool, you know, you're not partying. But here was an avenue for them to get involved with people the same age. And so there was this big group, this big movement that actually wanted to do something. And then we basically escalated from just doing builds to raising funds. And as I mentioned earlier, the fact that shelter and having a decent place to live in is actually educational to the youth raising funds. We saw lives transform over the years. It's a double-ended spectrum as well, because at the other end of the spectrum, the recipient of the house, the home partner, the child that is in the family that receives the house, will also grow in that structure. And Secretary Cisneros said, I think the second day of the forum, that if you are to involve yourself in one cause in your lifetime, involve yourself in a cause that is bigger than you and that will outlive you. And shelter is definitely something that after you go, you know, after we leave this earth, will always be there. And I just think that that my passion for Habitat has always been there and will always be there because of how it was a big part of me growing up. So, to go back to your question also on what's the difference of being an ambassador in the diplomatic realm and being an ambassador of the cause, I don't think there's an entire divorce in that. If you're an ambassador in the diplomatic realm, you're basically the representative of the government in that country, the sovereign head, and so you're supposed to promote goodwill. While you're not representing a country, you're representing a cause, and so you have to be conscious as well that you are not going against that cause. You're wholesome, you're representing the mission of that cause. And so, in that sense, the fact that you're representative of something greater than you, it's one and the same in that sense, I guess.
Thank you, Alex. What dedication. I think you should take the Foreign Service exams. You will make a fine diplomatic ambassador. Don't you think so? But perhaps just a word on being a diplomat. We are not just representing the country. We represent the people, the aspirations of the people, the national interests of the greater number of people, the greater good for the greater number of people. So perhaps that's a little addition to your perception of our work as ambassador. Ephraim, Elf, or F.
Yes, F.
Whichever. Since you were given the CNN Hero Award in 2009, this is prying a little bit too close to home. Has anything changed in the way people were responding to your advocacies? Was the recognition a boon or a bane to your advocacy efforts? Do you think people are eager to know more about you as a person or your advocacy? Did people promise you and perhaps promises went up into the air like a balloon? Or did they really, really come and push the cart with you?
Yes. Before the recognition of the CNN heroes, when we pushed the cart the first time, we were ridiculed. We were laughed at because here in the Philippines, push cart is a symbol of poverty. It's not a symbol of education or anything else. Because push cart here in the Philippines, we use it to collect garbage, trash. For some vendors, it became a store. For some families in the street, it became their houses. And so when we push the cars, we put all the materials, the educational materials, and we bring it to the communities for the children, because a lot of children here in the Philippines don't have an access to education. Although education is free, but it's not really free because they have to spend to buy school supplies, to pay for transportation, and for their snacks in school. So families could not afford to send these children back to regular school. So what we did is why sitting here and not doing something? So what we have is the push cart. So we packed it with the educational materials and with toys, with books, with everything that we can share with the children to help them, teach them how to read, how to write, and how to take care of themselves. And people are cursing us. Jeepney drivers are buzzing so loud, and they would say, "Stop what you're doing. You're not. It's not gonna go a long way, and you're a cause of traffic." And some bystanders would throw rocks or stones on us, and then they will curse us. So it's really hard when we push the cars the first time. But after CNN Heroes, the recognition of that news network, everything changed. So there's a 100-degree turn. People who don't believe in the first place, but now who are believers with our work, they now got interested with the work that we do. So when we push the cart in the street, they would shout loud, but they would say, "You're doing a good job, continue what you're doing." And they would say, they would sign 2 thumbs up with what we do. And some jeepney drivers would buzz so loud, and then they would come down and, "Can I have a picture with you?" It's like that. So, all in all, CNN gave us a platform where we could share the voice of the children and the volunteers. Actually, like what I said in the CNN tribute show in Hollywood, I told the people there that this is not about me. It's I was there to represent the volunteers of the Cariton classroom or the push-art classes. It's the dedication and the passion of the volunteers who brought us here. it's not just the work of one person, because we believe that we are never too strong to do things on our own. And that made a difference. It's the volunteers that really makes an organization complete and makes the organization grow. So without them, I think we cannot go a long way like what we have right now. So we've been replicating the pushcart classroom in different parts of the country, and also just recently we had replication in Kenya and Jakarta, Indonesia, and soon in Tanzania. So we bring education to the less fortunate children. It's that passion of me started when I first volunteered. Just to share with you, when I first volunteered at the Jimmy Carter Work Project in 1999 in Maragondon, because my mentor showed me to or have me volunteer to a lot of volunteer works, building houses in Habitat for Humanity and in the prison. So that time in 1999, when I said a while ago about Kuya Gary on the performing live after the whole week of building houses, in the beginning I was there not for the celebrity, not just to see or not to see, because I don't know that there will be celebrities in the activity. But after the whole week, I was there to help. I was there to volunteer. I was there for the families who will benefit with the program. So and this came the celebrity part at the end of the program. I mean, for me, what took me to volunteer is believing the cause first, and then the celebrity, seeing my idol just beside me singing for us. He was able to create a certain emotional connection for me to continue and then aspire for more and volunteer and move forward. And that's why housing is really a good project. But I then realized that building the lives of many children is better. And so there's really an important of that part, having celebrity beside you, believing with you on the cause that you believe into. So that's why I continued my volunteer work, and now we're here and pushing the carts, and now pushers.
Thank you, Alex. You know, the cart is very symbolic. I think you have chosen a very symbolic means. Reminds me of my diplomatic days when you try to compete to invite the best guests you can at home. So I said, how can I make people remember my nice dinner? Even I spent the whole day cooking adobo and lumpia, etc., but they don't remember that. So I said, what is it? So I thought of bringing with me throughout my 40 years career an ice cream cart, the dirty ice cream cart. Up to today, people remember my ice cream cart, but they don't remember me. But your description of your push cart made me think that you need a symbol. You need something like that. My ice cream cart, I tell them the story of the Filipinos who live in the tropics. You know, it leads to one thing after the other to share with people how we're such an ingenious people. We've turned the old military jeep into a mode of transportation, and we have turned the pushcart. But what made you think of the pushcart?
The pushcart actually is an idea which evolved. We first use camping bags with our program and pedicab, the tricycle. But most of the time we experience flat tires because of the materials and the heavy equipment and the food, the books that we bring. So three of our volunteers thought of why not Kuya use, let's replace the pedicab or the tricycle with the pushcart, because the wheels of the pushcart is made of wood, so, and it's easy to maneuver, it can fit on alleys, so then we just put a shelf and the books in there, so all the stuff that we bring, and we're just gonna push it all together. So that's how the pushcart began in 2007.
So that's the story of the pushcart. Did you give names to your pushcarts?
Yes. So we have names for, we have Kari, the one who bring the educational materials for values formation. We have Tony, who brings the toys and all the learning materials to have fun for the children. And we have Nick, that's our Cariton clinic, pushcart clinic, so where we put there all the hygiene materials, medicine kits, because we teach hygiene to the children. And we have Trio. It's the one who brings all the literacy materials to teach them children basic counting, writing, reading. So that's the name: Kari, Tony, Trio, and Nick.
I'm disappointed there's no girl's name. Do you need a
Kari.
donor for a girl's name to be on a pushcart? Any
Kari-
donors here?
Kari can be girl, can be a
Okay,
Kari.
we'll
Tita
turn-
Kari, Tita Kari Aquino. That's why actually
okay.
we have Kari because we are inspired with Tita Cory Aquino. So we painted the pushcart with yellow, and then just to remember when Tita Cory passed away. So, and we name it Kari for Tita Cory actually.
Oh, you see, he played it safe. Thank you, Alex. And no.
Efren po.
Efren. That's the problem with having a kilometer name. Margie, I can sympathize with you about filling in your immigration card. When I do my own, I said, ano bang lalagay ko dito? Retired? Tired? Recycled? But of the many advocacies that you have chosen to devote your life to, what would be the most rewarding, you think? This is getting too personal, but I think it's quite nice to see how a person like you would like where you would like to spend your time more on, and how would you do it?
I spend a lot of time, I'm involved in environment, in housing, in the arts and culture, and women. But Habitat for Humanity, because it's a house and you're dealing with communities, I can put everything there. All my advocacies, I put it in with Habitat for Humanity. I'm able to connect all my advocacies. And especially because I focus on Mindanao and in conflict areas, and because there's conflict and then there's reconstruction, it's like it doesn't end, and there's a lot of funds coming in. So because I was able to connect Habitat with the Department of Social Welfare, we were able to get a lot of funding again for Central Mindanao. So I'm able to practice my women's advocacy in those areas where we're building 2,000 houses now. And I find it very fulfilling, especially when you turn over a house to a family. It's something concrete. And in post-conflict areas, it is a tool to maintain the peace, because we are able to put up houses in communities where there are mixed cultures and promote multiculturalism in those little communities. And we're able to negotiate for peace so that people can live together, where they're Muslims, they're indigenous people, and they're Christians. So depending on who's the majority. And we have been successful in promoting post-conflict reconstruction in these areas. So for me, that's really fulfilling, because you are able to see lives transform in those areas. And we are excited now, Habitat for Humanity, because we're going to Mindanao. We're back to Zamboanga as post-conflict reconstruction. And this is a massive reconstruction work that we have to do quickly. And it's tough, it's quite difficult, but there's a lot to learn, and we are able to connect with people who can also help. do establishing the peace in that area, because it's not like natural calamities. These are man-made calamities. So there's a lot of reconstruction that needs to be done before you even start building the houses. Now, going back to just that's Efren and Alex are really champions who became celebrities. And we seen Alex when she was still in high school that she became a champion and a natural partner of Habitat for Humanity because the cause was in her heart. And Alex, when she was in Baseco building houses for 2 months, and we had massive, because we were building 1,000 houses, she came out in the front pages of the newspapers. She didn't need to be a celebrity, but she had a good story to tell. And the media had a good story to pick up from a very young person able to mobilize volunteers and her class to tell a story. And Habitat was in the front pages. So you don't really need a celebrity for a long term. You just need to find somebody who can be a champion. But we also need celebrities, especially because Mayan mentioned that we are competing with so many other fundraising programs and other NGOs. And we need to establish awareness that there is, Habitat for Humanity. And we recruit volunteers who are celebrities at a time when we have to put our brand again in the market. Consumers love celebrities and they identify themselves with a certain brand. But even if it's short term, it is a good way to also fundraise for that year or for the next 2 years that we need to raise money. It's very strategic. We just don't get volunteer celebrities just for the sake of getting them, but we have to be strategic in how long we can have them, knowing that they're also very busy people, and perhaps we can find champions in them to stay with us for a long time. So there are certain roles that celebrities can play to establish your brand in the market, because a brand of an NGO is like a business. It's a consumer brand. And it has to be top of mind for you to be able to get the resources, especially monetary resources. And hopefully they become champions. But we can also find champions who can become celebrities because of the causes that they believe in.
Thank you, Margie. Now talking about raising funds, back to issues of existence. Mayan, as a fundraising mentor, what do you think should Habitat for Humanity offices do? This is getting a little bit hot to the topic. To be able to nurture the public's burning desire to help and be involved in addressing poverty housing challenges. Now you're a doctor, so you can give the prescription.
Thank you for the unscripted question. It's not in my little list. As a fundraiser, though, and not knowing what Habitat is doing right now, I always believe in 2 things in fundraising. One is that we need to make it easy for donors to give. If you ask people to please go to the nearest Bank of the Philippine Islands, deposit into account number 12345, fax back your deposit slip to us so that we can thank you, you've lost your donor. Because you've asked them to leave their office, go to a bank, fill up 3 copies, and look for a fax machine that hopefully will connect to your telephone number and it's not a busy signal. Today, in the Philippines, over 40% of donations use credit cards. If you do not accept credit card donations, you are losing that big portion of the population who believe in your cause but do not have the time to go to the bank. It's the first. The second is that we need to reconstruct fundraising. When we constantly think about funds, we lose funds. I believe it's not about raising funds, it is about raising friends. In all of my sessions, I always start with, it's not about the money. It is about raising friends, sharing the vision of Habitat or your organization with people who have affinity to housing or children or education, and then taking steps to manage that relationship. I hear it so often, now that I am in the Asian Institute of Management, I hear it so often that we have alumni who will say, you know, we never hear from you unless you need money. Have you heard that line before? Yeah? Every time you have a benefit or a dinner or a concert, that's the only time you dig up your little list of donors, and that's the only time you write. But you forget about them during their birthday, during Christmas, or if there's an anniversary, you only go to the rich and famous. No? Our ordinary donors are conveniently forgotten. Today, in the advent of technology, there is actually, and I advocate this very often, we need to have a donor management software. What is this? It's an Excel file where you put the names and the addresses of people who have at one point given to you or volunteered to you, and then you add to that list people who will give in the future, etc. Because our little brain, especially after 3 anesthesias, giving birth to 3 children, you kind of forget even the names of your children, no? But with a database, hopefully without a virus, then you can keep track of all of those donors. And the advantage of this is that it doesn't become my list, doesn't become Efren's list or Alex's or Margie's list. It becomes the list of Habitat for Humanity. When Margie decides to move to Zimbabwe, for example, she lives her little list with Habitat for Humanity, and it becomes an institutional relationship as opposed to just friends of Margie or just friends of Efren. And I think those are things that they're not sexy. They're kind of like, administrative stuff. But they're the ones that make or break a fundraising campaign. When I left UNICEF in 1999, I left UNICEF with 55,000 individual donors. If you go into that list, and you will actually find pictures of donors we have pictures of. You will find the birthday of the donor. You will find the nickname of the children, etc. Any data we would get about the donors, we would put it in this database. And we would save that data, and nobody can copy it. It's the gold mine of UNICEF. It was so gold that we would keep another copy in the bank across the street in a safety deposit box because the cloud was not yet available at that time. Today, you just save in the cloud, and so that, even if your computer crashes, you have data that's in the cloud that's protected because you spend a lot of money raising friends. And I think those are the 2 things that I would encourage you to do. And, a third one, do not be scared to ask for a sum of money. Do not say any amount you give. Say how much. Do you know that in the Philippines, the average gift of an ordinary Filipino is 1,100 pesos? Average gift per annum of one person in the Philippines is 1,100. In Thailand, it is a similar amount. It becomes higher if the letter or the ask is made by the king or a relative of the king. Unfortunately, we are not related to the king, therefore we will just receive a small amount of money. In India, it is the same. In India, the average gift is a little bit lower, it's a little bit less than 1,000 pesos, but these are still significant amounts of money from people you may not know, for people who just heard about your cause but would like to help. No? So I think those 3 things will put you on the right track as far as fundraising is concerned. And of course, there are many fundraising examples. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. Google it, and you'll find a lot of fundraising examples.
Thank you, Mayan. Now you got free consultation services. If you want to donate, send it to AIM. I'm joining them, by the way, that's why. But thank you so much. Alex, can you tell us about your organization, Move? I find it in the...
Yes. Okay.
That's why we set you there, so that they take picture of you and your organization.
Okay, basically what MOVE is it stands for Molding Optimism and Values Through Education. And the reason that I founded MOVE is because in my I think it's already 8 years with Habitat now, I realized that when you give someone shelter, especially at the grassroots level, they're endowed with an inevitable sense of responsibility, and sometimes they don't know how to make their house a home. And it's not their fault, it's because of the lack of education. And so I want, the youth had this vision that we wanted to start a more holistic transformation within Habitat communities. And of course, we can't do everything. And so we wanted to start somewhere. And because Republic Act 10157 was passed last year, it was where President Aquino signed kindergarten into the K-12 curriculum, that kinder be the first level of mandatory schooling. School readiness got moved back to an earlier age. And so we decided that since it's also mandatory that daycare structures be built in communities, and oftentimes these daycare structures aren't operated by anyone, and so they become drug smuggling dens. I don't know, crimes happen there. We wanted the daycare structures in Habitat to be operated as a preschool and not just a typical daycare run by a social worker, in order to give the kids living in those communities an edge when they enter kindergarten. And so we had our pilot run last year. We started in November in Navotas. And I'm proud to say that 12 kids graduated from kindergarten, and they took the entrance exam in the Navotas Public High School. And one of the students actually passed the grade 1 exam with flying colors, that he got accelerated to grade 2 and is still now topping his class. And and they didn't even have the full school year. That was from November to March. So what I'm trying to say is, just with that small amount of time, and it's not really how big or it's quality over quantity. We started small, but we want to make sure that we actually make the impact grow. And so we're on our second school year. We have 100 students, and we're about to open 2 more schools in Malabon and Batangas by the end of the year.
Thank you. I think you should, Alex, I think you should brief our Philippine diplomats of what you're doing, so that they will be made better ambassadors than they are now. But you have a message to give, to share. I have been told by Kates to open the floor. I'm sure you're dying to know a few things about everybody here. Except me, please count me out. You have a wonderful lineup here, and I'd like to open the floor to questions. And please give your name and address your question to whoever you think is relevant to your question. There's a stunning silence. Does it mean everything was clear? You all know how to raise funds? You're all willing to push a cart? You're all coming with us to Mindanao? Yes, please.
I'd like to address my question to the good guru from AIM, Ms. Cabral.
Name and organization,
I'm
please.
sorry, I'm Malvin Oranza from Habitat for Humanity, Philippines. I've been thinking about this theme we have for this year, this housing as a foundation for breaking the poverty cycle, and I'd like to hear your thoughts about it. Thank you.
When we do fundraising, it's important that the words we use can be understood by a grade 3 student, whether K+12 or not. No? It's important because when we start using the jargon that we in the development sector love to use, we kind of like empowerment, development. What are our favorite words? Awareness, capacity building, no?
Sustainable.
A lot of these
Sustainability.
A lot of these words are familiar to us, but they're foreign to people, ordinary people, no? It's very difficult to come up with a tagline, and it brings to mind an organization I worked with many years ago. The name of the organization is Save the Children. And to this day, I remember their tagline: saving the children, by helping communities help save their children. Because it's a community-based organization that doesn't just help the children, no? So I think when you have a tagline, housing as a foundation for breaking the poverty cycle, I think it's good for a conference like this, but if you put this in a little envelope or a little brochure, it doesn't catch as much attention as you would ordinarily have. One of the most successful campaigns of UNICEF was a campaign called Change for Good. I'm not sure if any of you encountered Change for Good, but it was a campaign that asked people when they're on an international flight of Cathay Pacific and many other airline companies, no, they would put loose foreign currency, you know, the change that we cannot use when we get back home. They asked them to put it in that little envelope. Can anyone guess how much UNICEF raised through that campaign of loose change? Anyone? Just a guess. $17 million every year is raised through that campaign. But if you look at the title, it's Change for Good. It's very easy: change as in coins, as in barya, no, and then good. Child rights, it can be housing, it can be an assortment of other things. UNICEF actually patented that term, no, Change for Good, and it's stuck. We do it, UNICEF does it very often, except that now many other organizations started to copy the Change for Good because it was a very successful program. Another program that we have was Round Up for Children. The program allowed us to round up the hotel bill of Hotel Intercontinental hotels all over the world, no? Actually, sorry, just 10. And we were able to raise £1 million from that Rounding Up for Children campaign. So it's really coming up with taglines that are a little bit more attractive. But certainly the conference title, I think, is appropriate for the audience. I think at the end of the day also, you need to know who are you talking to. The shape and the form of a donor, that donor is a woman. It's sorry, men. The donor is a woman. The donor is oftentimes above the age of 45. The donor oftentimes have a college education. Those are the things you have to do. So what does that mean? I guess it has to be pink because it's a woman. I guess the font size cannot be 12 because it's the eyesight. 45 and above, you kind of need to make it font 16, no? And then finally, college educated. So you can use English, you can use the vernacular. But the other thing about women donors is that they love installment. Right, women? It's like, if you ask women to give you 100 pesos every month for the next 12 months, they'll say yes. If you ask women to give you 1,200 today, they'll say, right? The reverse is true for the men. The men don't like that installment. They like, here's my money, get out of my face. No? Kind of donation. The men also like being a little mayabang. How do you say mayabang? Proud. You know, they say, here's 1,500. You know, one time, big time. No? They kind of don't like the teardrops, which means that when you do fundraising, you need to understand who you are talking to. Are you talking to an old person? Are you talking to a young person? Are you talking to a man, to a woman, etc.? And one of the campaigns that I encourage Habitat for Humanity to do is to start, this is my personal advocacy, is to start teaching the young people how to give. And that's not by giving them prizes of a PlayStation if your class gives the biggest amount of money. I kind of like it that we encourage children to give of their own allowance instead of asking their parents to give. No? And I think that's the start of a philanthropic movement because you don't want people to just give when they're rich and famous. You want people to give, you know, of themselves very early on in their lives. So maybe that's some campaign that Habitat for Humanity can undertake. And just to tell you it's worth your while, the campaign, yung 25, Pondo ng Pinoy, How much did they raise? Any guesses? 600 million pesos from 25 centavos. That's enough. That's enough to encourage you to start getting the children to start giving 25 centavos. That's a campaign where you fill up a water bottle with 25 centavos, and a water bottle can get you 120 pesos in 25 centavo coins. Now, what the church did was they asked all the schools to get all their students to give, and that resulted to a very large endowment for what is now known as a community foundation of Pondo ng Pinoy.
Thank you, Mayan. We have time for 2 more questions. Yes, please.
Good afternoon. I'm Tony from Don Bosco Youth Center, Tondo. And my question is for Ms. Cabral. Ms. Cabral, ma'am, we cannot deny the fact that the Habitat for Humanity tend to have benefactors easier compared to other NGOs because of its popularity internationally. But how about those NGOs which are not which are unknown to our benefactors? What can you suggest?
I now need to send my bill to Kate's. Remarkably, when we did a survey, Filipinos and Asians in general do not like giving to international causes. They don't like big names. They feel that by giving to big names, they're funding expensive salaries, expensive operating costs. A lot of the Asians are very parochial. You know, it's something that happens in the backyard, something they're familiar with. They kind of like working with smaller organizations. Unfortunately, smaller organizations don't ask. They don't. Habitat for Humanity, how many people are in the fundraising unit? Raise your hands. You know, it's a big operation, yeah? Smaller organizations, they say, okay, you're the finance officer. Can you do fundraising when you're not doing anything else? Yeah? So I think it's important for smaller organizations to invest in a fundraising person so that fundraising person starts to ask for gifts, because asking really increases the chances of a gift by 50%. It just goes two ways, yes or no. But if there's nobody who is asking, you'll not get the gift. So I think that's important, that the small NGOs start to ask for money. Just as a curious number to post here. Do you know how many nonprofits there are in the Philippines alone? Any guess? In a study that was done by the University of the Philippines, there are 318,000 nonprofit organizations in this country alone. If you don't have a fundraising officer, you're not going to be able to raise money.
Ma'am, my second question is...
Can we have the answer also from Margie?
Just to
You're entitled to only one question.
Okay, ma'am.
Just to answer also from what Mayan said, that Habitat for Humanity had to Philippinize its brand. Okay, because the true, to be international is not actually an advantage. We had to Philippinize it, and one way of doing that is by getting local celebrities, not just Jimmy Carter, but local celebrities to really bring our branding out. And it's also not how big, because we started small. Habitat in the Philippines started very small. It was a very small NGO. And one thing that is very important for companies to give, or for any individual, is how credible you are. What kind of projects you have, maybe from the, children to housing to environment. As long as you are able to be a credible and organization and to show the donor what you've done is very important. That's how you get your credibility.
Thank you, ma'am.
One last question. Yes, please.
Hi, Miss Karina Rodriguez from iHome Philippines. My question is, how important is livelihood to the places wherein we do have houses. Because I believe that livelihood means school, means clinic or health, food, peace and order, and anything that we need so that these people or our people in the Philippines will not transfer from one place to another.
Alex and
Um, that's an excellent question. I want to say that livelihood is extremely important. In fact, it's something that we realized along with the other birthing pains of when we started MOVE. Initially, MOVE.org was just supposed to focus on early childhood education. But 2 months down the road, we found that a lot of our time was actually spent convincing the parents that they needed to send their kids to school rather than sending them out to fish in the morning so that they would have food for the day. That's when we rolled out a food incentive program that basically, if the children came to school and the parents delivered their tasks and helped in their community initiatives, then we would send home, I think it's 2 kilos of bigas every month. And right now, we're in the process of actually partnering and rolling out different livelihood opportunities for the mothers as well, so that, because oftentimes the culture, well, at least in Navotas, is the father goes out to fish, the mother is nasa bahay lang naglalaba. But we want also to give empowerment to the mothers and let them realize that while your children are in school, helping your family move towards a brighter future, you can also help in your own little way by doing that. And what we found is it's not that the mothers are lazy and they don't want to do it, but they need the they need the empowerment and the convincing that they are capable of doing something worthy. And so I think that livelihood not only serves its purpose financially, it also empowers those that are given the opportunity.
Thank you.
thank you, Alex. Well, since that was supposed to be the last question, perhaps I'll have the last word. And that's prerogative. I would like to thank you all and for your engagement. I think it was the most endearing to me to see such wonderful friends that I have to be so engaged and dedicated. It gives me great hopes for this wonderful, precious country. And what you've heard really is all about engagement. Celebrity endorsement is also no longer about putting a familiar face on our advocacies. It is about getting a celebrity or an advocate that shares, and you've heard them all, that believes and live by the values and principles that the advocacy represents. Now, from your side, after hearing all such engaged friends up here, I would like to know from you, based on what you've heard, do you think that celebrity advocates help the cause? If you think so, raise your hand. It's a different scenery from the beginning, where I did not see one hand raised. So Kate, you can do your survey now. And I think that's wonderful that you have reacted, and it means you have been listening, and that you were not sleeping, and that you were not raring to go out to join the crowd outside that begins at 3 o'clock. In addition, I'd like to perhaps, being inspired by what I've heard this afternoon, I would like to make one little suggestion, if I may. If you look at the back of your program, there are 3 celebrities that are identified. Can you please look at it now? 3 celebrities at the back of your program. What I'd like to see, perhaps in the future, would be a quote from a Filipino celebrity, a very special celebrity, who, in her typical self-effacing manner, said, and it's a quotable quote, I merely serve as a catalyst. That's Margie Moran. Did you see your program? Was there a Filipino there? It's about time. Well, Kate again continues to torture me. You are requested to remain in your seats after we close this session. We will all proceed with the closing ceremony immediately after our closing remarks, which we have already done. So please be seated, remain seated while our chair will speak to us. And maraming salamat po sa inyong lahat.